I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
And I realized how many amazing places around the world had some connection to hell or the underworld, either through legends or lore, or because they inspire what people around the world, different cultures and throughout human history, have imagined an underworld or another realm to be like.
That is our guest today, Erika Engelhaupt. She is the author of a new National Geographic book called Go to Hell, A Traveler's Guide to Earth's Most Otherworldly Destinations. And I thought, what better way to celebrate Halloween than to mix it with travel, like she has done in this book. And I asked Erika to pull out her top 7 places to experience hell on Earth. You're going to hear an incredible mix of off the beaten path destinations. If you want to add some hellscapes to your bucket list, this is the show for you. You're going to get some history, some culture, science. You're going to get some legends, some of these portals to the underworld you may discover. You're going to hear about the birthplace of Halloween, the Devil's Bath, and so much more. It's a fun one, and I know you're going to love it. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel Podcast's Halloween Spooktacular.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel Podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. We're going to dive right into this. Just a quick reminder, we have a newsletter. You can sign up over at zerototravel.com/newsletter. I love these lists, and when an author puts so much time and effort and research into a book, and then we get to pick their brain and hear their top 7 picks from the book. This will give you a good taste of what is in this book, and it's a really unique place to explore some different parts of the world, as you'll hear today on this global tour of Earth's most otherworldly destinations. Please enjoy this episode, and thanks for listening. Cheers. Erika Engelhaupt, welcome to the Zero to Travel Podcast, my friend. Thanks for being here, and a huge welcome. And I'm excited to chat with you today about this book.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, your first travel book. I mean, we're talking you're normally a science writer, and I was even wondering how you got to that point. Before we dive into this list, we have 7 places to experience hell on Earth. We thought this would be a fun way to kind of talk about some of the content in the book, and to give you a chance to kind of pull out some of your favorites and places, some places you've been, some places you want to go. But you know, you went to university in Boulder, Colorado, which is where I lived before moving to Norway. So I'm very fond of Boulder. Yes. Yeah. And you studied environmental science there. And I'm wondering like how you went from that to writing about
hell.
Yeah. Dark, these sort of like macabre sort of themes in a way.
I know. Right? Yeah. Boulder doesn't really strike people as, it strikes people as a happy, sunny place, right? While I was in Boulder, actually getting a graduate degree in environmental science, I started to make the switch into science journalism. And I love it because I get to write about so many different things. And as someone with a background in science, it was really hard for me to focus on researching one thing for the rest of my life. And so as a science journalist, I get to not only travel the world, but also learn about something new basically every day. And so I love that. So I ended up working at National Geographic in Washington, D.C. as a science editor.
Like the dream job for a science editor, right? I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, it was so fantastic, and then I went freelance in 2016, but I still mainly work for National Geographic as a freelancer, and I started writing books, and my first book was based on a blog that I had been doing while I was there as an editor, and even before I was at Nat Geo. And the blog was called Gory Details. And so that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the kinds of things I'm interested in. If it's weird, gross, creepy, I probably am into it. So I've written about things like forensic science and medical curiosities. And I just love that kind of stuff. And so, of course, Halloween is my favorite season. And after I wrote Gory Details, we started talking about what my next book would be. And one of the things that stuck in my mind from my time at Nat Geo was all of these amazing places around the world that at the time, what I called awesomely awful places. Your lava lakes and flaming craters and toxic caves and just all these fascinating places. And one of the editors at National Geographic, one of the book editors, said, we are interested in a book about hellish destinations. And they had some ideas of a few places, and they actually were some of the same places that I had written about as awesomely awful destinations. And so we started putting two and two together, and I started doing some more background research, and I realized how many amazing places around the world had some connection to hell or the underworld, either through legends or lore, or because they inspire what people around the world, different cultures and throughout human history, have imagined an underworld or another realm to be like. Because, of course, people look around the world at the features around them, and those that are most awesomely awful, like those lakes of fire or, jagged rocky landscapes, different things like that, they have incorporated them into their idea of what another world might be like. And so I started to realize this was actually a really great travel guide, and also a way to travel, around the world and throughout history and learn about all of these different cultures and their ideas and the places that have inspired us the most throughout our history. And so it all kind of came together. So I, of course, as a science writer, I like to put in a little bit of, the geology of hell as well. And I really like doing the deep dive into some of the history and even a little bit of the science behind these places. Because, of course, many of them are natural places. And our criteria were that there had to be something interesting to see, either man-made or natural feature, but something that would be really interesting to see and that had an interesting backstory. So that's how the book came about.
I mean, those are great parameters, especially for this show, because we know we're going to get some interesting stuff here. Yet it's interesting because when you describe some of the content in the book, what was the term you said? Like fabulously awful, or what was the
awesomely awful? Yeah.
Awesomely awful. Yeah. Yeah. Alliteration. Sorry. There was alliteration there. I got that. I mean, some of these awesomely awful places, I'm sure these aren't in the book, but it could be like, an Orlando theme park on a hot summer day. It might be this hell for some people.
Yeah.
But I always imagined hell as kind of like, the castle levels in Mario Brothers where there's the swinging fire things.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, and the big lizard guy. It's probably a little bit like that kind of vibe,
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody's in like 8-bit, two-dimensional whatever, but
no, that's my generation. So, yeah, I have to wonder if they took some of those things from actual hells around the world, because there are some really pretty frightening ones when you look at some of the ancient Mesoamerican hells, for example. You're talking about, the Maya, Aztecs, Inca, those kind of folks. They had these multi-level underworlds that would have kind of an obstacle course like that. So it was a lot like playing Mario Brothers or something.
You had to like navigate. Mario Brothers.
It was just like that. And that's what you faced after death, was you had to get through this obstacle course, and you might have to like swim rivers of blood and, fight the jaguars. And then there'd be like, there was actually, I think in one of them, something with a game that you had to play with really jagged, spiky balls that you threw back and forth. It was, it was a lot like a video game, was essentially the hell.
Yeah. Well, Harry Houdini famously said that, like, if anybody can come back from the other side, it would be him, because he, is this great escape artist or whatever. And we haven't heard from him, but I've had a guest on the show who had near-death experience, and I've read books about this, and there are some common occurrences, you could say, like across the board. And this is like science backed, like they did research on, hundreds of people from different cultures, and, they had linked all these different sort of common experiences to near-death experiences, but not everybody has them. Like, actually, not to get too pop culture-y, but I know Al Pacino recently died and came back or something. Like, he was like in some kind of he had some kind of medical emergency. He's like, there's nothing there. But then I've talked to people that, so I don't know. I don't know Al Pacino's story, but all of this is to say, before we dive into this list and have some fun with it, what do you think? I mean, what are your beliefs around this?
Well, I think that there are a lot of commonalities in what people have imagined over time. I don't personally believe in a literal hell, but I can definitely see why people throughout human history have come back again and again to this idea of not only an underworld that is linked to the afterlife, but also this place of judgment, this kind of what we think of now as hell, where you're being punished for something wrong that you did in your life. Because you see that I was a little surprised actually when I first started doing the research to see how many different cultures have had something like that. I mean, going back to ancient Egyptian times, looking at different cultures in Asia and around the world, they've all had some, not all, but many, many, many cultures have had some idea of a place of punishment or judgment. And I personally, I think a lot of that comes back to people facing the same basic problems and, kind of grappling with life, death, and morality in similar ways. So, for example, I always say, everyone throughout history has faced the same challenge of teaching their kids to act right, even when no one's looking, right? And so we have to, we teach our kids, if you're bad, if you steal something, even if no one's looking, it's going to catch up with you in the end. You're going to be judged later. And so I think a lot of us have come up with that same basic concept. Like, we need a way to put stakes on our behavior, even if we don't get caught doing something wrong. So I think a lot of cultures have come up with the same kind of solution, which is some kind of hell, and the idea that surely even if someone is really horrible in this life, surely there's going to be retribution at some point, and they're going to have to pay for that. And I think that's just really satisfying, honestly. Like,
the poor kids. I mean, you could just say, "Hey guys, you're not going to get ice cream tonight. No ice cream for you if you do that." Instead, they're like, "You're going to burn in an eternal pit of fire."
Exactly.
Anyway, that's a larger societal question. We're not going to get into, but Damn, these poor kids. All right. Maybe hell is also getting a bunch of rewrite notes from your book editor. I'm not sure. It depends on, again, who you're talking to. But all right, let's get into the places. And then I'm going to give you a fair warning. We're going to circle back because I have more questions on the science writing and you have some interesting articles. For example, I want you to help us answer the question, if you died, would your dog eat you? This is an article that you wrote. So this is like unrelated to all the book stuff, which is, by the way, Go to Hell, A Traveler's Guide to Earth's Most Otherworldly Destinations. So let's go through this like fun list you put together, pulling out 7 places to experience hell on Earth. And then I have some questions about, if our dogs are going to eat us when we die, and some other fun things that you've written about before.
Great, yeah. That article is probably my most popular ever. I did not anticipate that when I wrote it, but yes.
Wow, it's a very catchy headline.
Lots of questions.
I got to say,
it is.
Like, would your dog eat you if you died? Get the facts. All right. We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop. Now, back to the show. Did you put these in any sort of like personal preferential order, or are they just sort of a hodgepodge list? Is it categorized, or is it just like, hey, I'm just gonna write down 7 places, let's rock through them?
I kind of tried to go around the world and find some different kinds of places that I thought would be a little bit off the beaten path and that people might not already know about.
Yes. You're speaking our language.
So,
how did you know our audience so well?
Exactly. And so, for example, I know you already know about Pompeii, and that's in the book. But I'm going to tell you about some places in Italy that people probably have not heard about.
Okay.
So if you want, we could start there. We could start in Italy.
Sure.
And one of my favorite trips that I did for this book was I traveled to Naples, Italy, and some surrounding areas of Naples. And I feel like Naples is one of those kind of underrated areas in Italy for a lot of American tourists in particular, because, it's a city that you think of pizza and what else? A lot of people have told me that they've gotten off a cruise ship. They've gotten off a cruise ship in Naples and had some pizza and didn't know what else to do. So I'm going to tell you a few other things you can do that are that I found really fascinating. So even just walking around the city, this is a city that has such a deep connection to I'm just going to say it, basically to death and and the idea of hell and the underworld. It goes back all the way into the ancient Greek and Roman history of this place. And so you walk around Naples, it's these little winding streets, and it kind of has this feel. If you've been to Naples, you know what I'm talking about. It has this feel of being steeped in history, and plenty of places that have a little bit of a creepy vibe. So one of my favorites was a particular church that I went to, and this is called Purgatorio ad Arco in Naples, Italy. And this is right, in downtown Italy. Like, a lot of tourists probably walk right by it and never even realize it's there. It was built in the 1600s, and the congregation was dedicated to praying for souls in purgatory. So the whole church is decorated with skulls and skeletons and a lot of imagery of souls in purgatory. And it has this underground tomb where the remains of the poor and even victims of plague would be buried. And what happened was, over time, people started adopting essentially particular skulls or bones, and they would pray for them. They would pray for them to get out of purgatory. So again, this is, Catholic, a Catholic church, and they believed that when you died, you went to purgatory and you paid for your sins. And only then could you move on to heaven. And so they would pick a particular skull, for example, and dote on it. Women would come in and polish it, clean it, and take care of it, and pray for it, and pray for the soul of that person. And because of this practice, they became known as the Neapolitan skull cult, or the cult of the dead. And not because it was a cult that was worshiping skulls, but because they had this preoccupation with skulls and with the human remains. The Catholic Church eventually said, you shouldn't be doing this. It was kind of a step too far in the veneration of human remains.
Guys,
yeah,
that's enough.
Yeah. But that practice has still remained alive to some extent, and many of the remains are still there, and also in a nearby cemetery called Fontenelle. And you can go, particularly to the church. It's really wonderful to tour around the church, see all of this imagery, all this history, and you can go down into the tombs, and they still have some of the remains, including a skull that is wearing a veil, and it's called Princess Lucia, and she is considered a kind of a patron saint of young brides still today. So that was a place that I really enjoyed going in Naples. But from there, you can walk around, you can see another church called San Severo that kind of lightens the mood a little bit, takes you to kind of a monument, basically a monument to heaven. It was a personal family chapel that was built. And they have statues like the famous Veiled Christ statue, which really it's a beautiful statue. It's Christ lying on a tomb with a veil over the face. And it looks so realistic that there were legends for many years that the guy who had basically built this chapel, he was kind of rumored to be an alchemist, some kind of dark magician, essentially. And so there were rumors for years that the veil was actually real cloth that he had used alchemy to petrify into stone. So there's just all kinds, there's so many cool places like that. I really enjoyed walking around Naples and just seeing that kind of history more from the Christian era. But then you can also leave Naples and do a short drive out to an area called the Phlegrean Fields. And there you can get even some of the older history. So this is a volcanically active area. There's what's called the Solfatara, which is this giant gash in the earth. Basically, you're driving down a little windy road and there's orange groves and it's beautiful. And then all of a sudden you come across this giant smoking gash in the earth, basically. And you can just kind of pull off to the side of the road and go look at it. And this is an area that has a lot of history as well. It's where it's probably one of the places that inspired Dante before writing the Inferno, because it's a place, it's kind of strange. It's like a place you can walk right up to, but it's got dangerous, gases shooting out, and it's been more or less active over time. And so you can just see all this, steam rising from it and so forth, and kind of weird formations on the bottom. There's actually a little bit of a tragic history there too, because I can't remember which year it was now, but in recent years, you were able to actually tour that area and walk on it. And most of a family died actually when a little boy fell through the crust into a fumarole, and then his parents tried to rescue him. And so that's so you do not go into the Solfatara anymore, ever since that terrible accident happened. But it is still an amazing thing to see, and to see that area, you can just picture what Dante was seeing before he wrote the Inferno, and all of those 9 circles of hell that he envisioned, which included a lot of these like kind of fiery, smoking landscapes, much like what he would have probably seen at that time.
Did you say this is a place that they know he visited and uses as inspiration?
It's believed that he did, because he was in that area, and some of the things that he wrote about sound like they were this place.
Yeah. It's interesting because you could say, then you can look at like works like the Sistine Chapel or these places which were influenced by Dante. And then it's just kind of like extrapolate that out, and you're taking it back to this one physical location. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And so I love seeing places like that, and places that have inspired some of the things that we still know about today, some of the things that have become, important parts of culture over time, or important parts of legend. So with that, I'd love to pick us up and transport us over to Ireland.
Look at this, a natural segue. Are you kidding? You want
to
I'm just going to hand this microphone over to you.
Can I just do that? And,
please do that.
Yeah. So let's pick ourselves up and go to another bit of ancient Western civilization with Ireland. And I think a lot of people may not realize how deep the ancient Irish history goes. I mean, it's really fascinating. And there were a lot of there's a lot of interesting pagan legend and lore associated with Ireland. And it's actually the birthplace of Halloween. So I think that's a good next stop. So one place that I really loved that is associated with being the birthplace of Halloween is a cave in Ireland. People now call it Ireland's Hell Cave, but back in the day, and I'm talking even thousands of years ago, it was called Onagat, or Cave of the Cats. And it's this little kind of unassuming hole in the ground in a field when you go there today. But once you climb inside, you kind of shimmy in and turn to the left, and then it opens up into this big, deep kind of crack in the earth, and kind of a tall, triangular shaped cave. And so it's pitch black in there once you turn this corner. And you can really imagine how ancient people believed that this was a portal to their version of what they called the Otherworld. Okay, so the Otherworld, or Tirnanog, was not a fiery hell, but it was a magical, spiritual realm where there were gods and goddesses. It was eternal spring in many legends, and there was a whole kind of cast of magical characters that lived in this other world. And you didn't even necessarily have to die to get there. You could pass through certain portals like this cave, Onagat, and some people would pass through and go see the other world and then come back, and they had all of these amazing stories about what was in this other world. And at the fall festival time called Samhain, which falls, at the end of October for us today, it was believed that at that time, on that night, the portal to the other world would open up. And so through this cave, this particular little cave in Ireland, in County Roscommon, would emerge all of these magical creatures and goddesses and things like that. One of them I love was called the Morrigan, which was a female figure that was a shapeshifter and would become a crow. And all of these creatures would fly across the earth, and that would usher in the beginning of winter. So some of the creatures that were there were nefarious, others were less so. And but what would happen at Samhain would be that, that portal to the other world would open up, and all of these creatures would emerge. So you can imagine what Christians thought of this when Christianity first came to Ireland. That sounded pretty terrifying to them. And as they began to Christianize Ireland, the legend of the other world, Tir na Nog, and all of these creatures, instead of being the other world, that became reinterpreted as hell. And the portal to the other world, the cave of Onagat, became renamed as the Hell Cave, or Cave to Hell, and seen as much more of a scary place. And the Festival of Samhain became Halloween.
It went through a rebrand.
It went through a major rebrand. It was a total rebrand. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The Christians completely rebranded it, and so but they had to incorporate. They had a pretty resistant pagan population that didn't necessarily. A lot of people didn't want to become Christians, and so they had to kind of incorporate some of their traditions with the Christian tradition, keep some of those things alive. And so today, when you go there at Halloween time, you see festivals, and there's a town called Trim where I went to a wonderful festival, and it really blended a lot of those ancient traditions with the modern Halloween. And so you'd have a parade, and you'd have the Morrigan and characters out of the ancient legends. And then you'd also have, your devils and witches and things, things out of Christian Halloween tradition. And so it was really cool. I highly recommend Ireland as the birthplace of Halloween for a Halloween trip. It was really, really fantastic.
That's great. Yeah. What a unique site to go visit. And, Ireland's a very busy place in terms of tourism, people visiting, and it's, you hear a lot of the typical things, and this is atypical. So it's kind of nice to, something to consider.
It is.
People might want to check. It's got a lot of interesting history. It's really cool.
It does. And there's a lot of, if you like archaeology and that kind of thing, it's super cool. And the site in County Roscommon where you can see Onagat, the cave, is just one small part of a very large archaeological site that you can tour and learn all about all of these really cool ancient legends and traditions. And and then from there, of course, you can go and see. Now Ireland is known as definitely a Christian country, a lot of Catholic tradition, so forth. So there's, if I can stay in Ireland for 1 minute, I'd love to mention another place. Is this
number 3 on the list, or is this a bonus? This is another bonus.
This is bonus within Ireland. I'm going to call Ireland a place.
Perfect.
And so bonus, you can travel by car pretty easily, and it's a lovely drive from County Roscommon, seeing the Cave of the Cats, up to the area in Northwest Ireland near Donegal. And you can see St. Patrick's Purgatory, which is another fantastic hell-themed location in Ireland, this time getting into the Christian era. So the legend at this site was that St. Patrick visited, and that Jesus came and spoke to him at this site and said, what are we going to, St. Patrick was saying, what are we going to do? These Irish, are so troublesome, and we can't convert them to Christianity. And Jesus said to him, you need to show them this pit here in this particular place, and it will take them to purgatory, and they'll see, if you show the people what lies in the afterlife, if they don't accept, if they don't accept Christianity, they will they will see the error of their ways, basically. And so that's the legend. The place became a monastery. It's gorgeous. It's located on an island in a large lake, and beautiful scenery all around. This monastery, basically takes up the whole little island, and people would make pilgrimages there, and still do to this day. So it has an incredible history of hundreds and hundreds of years of pilgrimages by Catholics who would come. Originally, they would come, and part of the experience would be to lock yourself up in this pit. They had built a little structure over it, and people would have visions of being in hell, essentially. And so there are all these really, really crazy stories.
like a sweat lodge kind of thing. Go into like the sweat lodge and sort of
like the Irish sweat lodge to hell. Yeah. And and so people would come out and report all of these visions that they had and so forth. And now the pit's been covered over. It's part of a pilgrimage site where people do, the Stations of the Cross and so forth. But people still go there, and if you're Catholic and you're interested in that, you can go and do 1 day or 3 day pilgrimages there. But even if you're not and you just want to see it, it's a gorgeous site, and you can see all of the history, and you can see where this portal to purgatory stood.
What's the name of the pilgrimage?
So it's the place is called St. Patrick's Purgatory.
I mean, I guess if you're having these visions and you go through that, at least afterwards, if it's pretty intense, you could go find like a Guinness and some like fish and chips and maybe some good music afterwards or something, after some really intense, life-changing visions. Ireland can come with her.
Absolutely.
Rest of what she has to offer.
Absolutely. So if you're interested in the pilgrimage, you can look it up as either St. Patrick's Purgatory, or I'm going to get this. The Irish is really tough. Loch Derg. So Loch, like, what they call a lake, and then Derg, D-E-R-G, is the name of the lake where this is. And it's often known by that name. And pilgrims go during the summer months, basically. And then the rest of the year, anyone can visit, and you can arrange for a tour.
Love it. Ireland, a great place to go hiking too, if you're up for. I like hearing about like these sort of obscure pilgrimages around the world that you don't hear too much about, and we hear about all the big ones. We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. Now, back to the show. All right, so wait, we made it to Italy. We're through Ireland. Where are we headed next?
Next, let's head.
Are we going to go to Michigan on this trip? I did want to hear about the Michigan town.
We could. I left the United States places off of my list because I was trying to be really like exotic and international.
We can throw it in on as a bonus on the end.
But we can throw it in as a bonus at the end. Yeah, I've got so many great places in the U.S. too. It's hard. Okay, let's go all the way to Turkmenistan next. This is the gates of hell. If you want something fiery and truly hellish looking, you go out into the middle of the desert in Turkmenistan, and all of a sudden there's this gaping hole that's opened up in the earth, and it's flaming, and it's been on fire for decades. No one knows exactly what happened, but it's thought that during natural gas exploration that this pit got opened up and somehow got accidentally ignited, and it's just been burning ever since.
I think this is one that people maybe they've come across this before. This is probably the most famous example of This
This
like
is
it's like a giant hole in the ground that's just constantly burning,
it is.
right?
And it's just constantly burning. And
Yeah.
so it's a destination in and of itself. And you can combine it on a stop with a tour and see like the Silk Road and a lot of the really amazing history in that area. But it also is just a really cool destination on its own. So you can go and camp on it on the side of this giant flaming 230-foot wide flaming pit. You really kind of have to see it at night to get the full effect. But that is one of the coolest places. And I've said, I loved going to Ireland for Halloween, but I would love to do another Halloween trip to the gates of hell in Turkmenistan because it's just spectacular. And I got to speak to probably the only person who's been inside this pit, the gates of hell, an explorer named George Coronas, who's done work with National Geographic. And he actually put on this whole silver heat-proof suit. I said when they lowered him down into this pit, it looked like a foil wrapped baked potato going down into the oven. And he went down inside it to collect some samples for scientific analysis. They, were looking for novel microbes living in this area, which of course there are because, microbes do that. So that's my little science lesson about the gates of hell is that, they've got, when they've been studying it, they found different microbes that are able to live there. And so he talked about that experience of, you look at this thing and it's just a flaming pit. He had to kind of find a place to land, and then he had to basically get lowered down on a rope, not knowing for sure whether he would like break through the crust and end up falling into a flaming pit below the flaming pit.
I'm not qualified for that job.
No, I just want to go and look over the edge.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's probably okay for me rather than going inside. But I thought it was very cool that at least one person has actually been inside the gates of hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then from there, let's see, would you like to move on to Indonesia or?
Yes.
Okay.
Take us to Indonesia.
So another fiery feature in Indonesia that I don't know how many people have heard of this volcano. It's called Kawah Ijen. And what's really unusual about this particular volcano, of course, it's, you picture volcano, you picture, orange lava flowing down the sides of a volcano and so forth. What's really different about this one and makes it, I would say, spookier is that there's so much sulfur gas coming out of this that the sulfur gas ignites and basically rolls down the side as blue flames. So you've got a volcano with blue flames rolling down the sides, and particularly at the crater at the top, you can hike up to the top, and it is actually, there are tours you can do. So this is something that a regular person could do. It's not as adventurous as it might sound, but you can actually climb to the top of this and see the blue flames rolling down this crater at night. And it's another one of those experiences where you go in the evening and you see it at night with the flames rolling down. And this volcano is not only gorgeous, but also deadly. I mean, this is a lot of sulfur gases coming out and so forth like that. And the interesting thing about it is there's mining activity, mining for sulfur on the volcano. And so you've got people who work there and who actually, climb this mountain every day and come back down carrying big loads of sulfur on their back. And which is a really dangerous job. But also really interesting to see and just to learn about the volcano and see that area. So that is on the island of Java.
Nice.
In Indonesia.
Okay. Where are we headed next?
And so next, let's go.
We got 3 more stops on this tour, by the way.
We got 3 more stops. Let's go to New Zealand. I love New Zealand is so gorgeous.
I don't think people think about New Zealand as hell. They're thinking about all of the sort of Lord of the Rings, paradise.
Exactly,
vibe,
the paradise side of it. But let me tell you, you go to the North Island. So New Zealand, you've got a big North Island and a South Island. The South Island is what a lot of people think of when they think of the Lord of the Rings and that very mountainous landscape. When you go to the North Island, you can go to an area along the northern coast of that, and it's very volcanic, but it's completely different from the South Island. And what I loved was the New Zealand version of hellscapes are gorgeous. So you've got all this volcanic activity. There's a town called Rotorua that is also known as the Sulphur City. And you go there and it's amazing to see how people live in such close proximity with all of these volcanic features. So even right in the middle of their downtown, they've got a little park where there are steaming fumaroles and, bubbling mud, and there'll be it's really pretty. I'm not making it sound pretty, but it's a very pretty park with all of this, volcanic
it's
activity.
Like when you go to Yellowstone, you're seeing like these boiling,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like kind of like going to Yellowstone.
Beautiful colors.
But but then there'll be like a little danger sign that says, danger, boiling mud.
Like if you stick deadly. Your hand in here, you're going to have nothing left except bone, maybe.
Yeah. So that's very cool. And you can go and soak your feet in little natural hot springs at the park and so forth. But then you go there are several different beautiful parks near there. And the 2 that I highly recommend to people are Waiotapu Scenic Reserve and Waimangu Volcanic Valley, both of which were spectacular. One of my favorites was Frying Pan Lake, which was an enormous lake. You've got steaming cliffs behind it and just this kind of cloud of steam that continually rolls across the lake. Just absolutely stunning. I mean, you could just stand there for all day staring at it. And then there were the colorful features, sort of like at Yellowstone, except you would have a big lake. There was one area called the Artist's Palette where it really looks like an artist's palette. I mean, it was blues, greens, reds, oranges, yellows, all across this lake area. And then there was a neon green lake that was called the Devil's Bath. It's well named. It looks like the Devil's Bathtub. It's just this little pit, and I can't even describe the shade of green. I mean, you have to see it. It's electric. It's electric green. So there's so many great places, and so I like to say that New Zealand has all of these hellscapey type features, but they're also gorgeous. They're also beautiful to see. And then you can top it off by going to some of the glowworm caves of New Zealand. These are pretty common on the North Island. One of the biggest ones is called Waitomo, and glowworms are actually a bit of a misnomer. They're technically glow maggots because these are little larvae.
Another great rebrand, because nobody wants to see glow maggots, right?
Exactly.
Glow maggots.
But the glowworms are so
cuter.
Cute.
Much cuter.
And so you go into the cave, and there's a little river through the cave. You get in a boat, and then all of a sudden you're surrounded by all of these little blue-green sparkling lights all around you. And those are the bioluminescent glowworms, or glow maggots, if you will, that live in these caves. And that's only found in New Zealand. It's a really eerie but really beautiful experience to see that. So that's something that you can't see really anywhere else in the world.
Did you travel to some of these places just for the book, or were you just...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm just going to take my entire advance and spend it on this.
I was lucky enough to get a little bit of travel budget. And so, so all of the places that we've talked about in Ireland and Italy and New Zealand, I have been to all of those and all fantastic. And then one that is still on my bucket list, though, I'm going to take us to South America for one of our last stops. Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela is a place. I really am hoping that Venezuela will be easier to travel to in the future, because this is the most electric place on Earth. It has the most lightning strikes of anywhere else. And so you can go there. Now you might say, well, why do I want to go somewhere where I'm going to get hit by lightning? Well, because you're not going to get hit by lightning, because what you're going to do is you're going to watch this lightning show from across the lake. And basically it's a spot where a river comes down into a lake. And because of the peculiar atmospheric conditions at that site, every night you essentially get an enormous lightning show. And it is literally the most electric place on Earth, and someplace that if you are into photography and nature photography and that kind of thing, the photographs that people come back with from this place are just spectacular. So that's also one of those kind of off the beaten path things, where you can witness the power of nature, but from a safe distance.
Sounds spectacular. I would love that.
Yeah.
All right, we're on our last
that's one
stop.
that I really want to do. Okay, so now we're going to go back all the way to Madagascar, which there's so many reasons to go to Madagascar. That's one of the top on my bucket list. But one that I thought that a lot of people might not have heard about, and that definitely has a great hellscape, is called the Singi de Bimaraha. And this is an area that has this bizarre rock formation that creates basically a landscape of enormous spikes. And you can, people have called it the devil's obstacle course. So it's this dense, almost like a forest, because they're towering above you, these sharp rocks. And what you can do there, if you're less adventurous, you can navigate some of this from the ground and see it. And there's all kinds of cool wildlife, lemurs that live up on these stone pillars, for example. So you can see all the wildlife and so forth. But what you can do that's really cool and adventurous is you can go on tours where you basically go on bridges and like hanging bridges and so forth, and see it all from above. And so you're just hanging over these bridges. You'll be clipped on with carabiners. But so a lot of people have called these some of the scariest bridges in the world, because you're just suspended over these kind of razor sharp looking kind of rocks,
just hanging on a web, on a thin line. Yeah.
Wow, and so you get to kind of dangle over these giant spikes. But when you look down, you get to see all of the lemurs and all of the, it's really gorgeous. So this is another one
and
where
if the rope breaks, you're impaled for sure. Right.
If the rope breaks, yes, you might be impaled. Yeah. you will definitely not like it.
Sometimes you see some things that we do as adventure travelers, and we're like, who thought of dangling people over?
I know. I want to know who built these bridges. Like, how do you do that?
I mean, granted, I want to dangle over those things, but still, I'm their target market, I guess, in some ways.
Well, they say it's pretty safe. Their bridges are pretty. You do have some you have some safety gear. So, but that's one that I have not done yet. That's on my bucket list. I want to see it, and after seeing the photos and just the wildlife and everything there, that's really truly, I think, a once in a lifetime experience to see something like that. Someplace that looks completely otherworldly.
Yeah. Erika, you're a great tour guide. Nice work. I mean, I could see the passion and feel the passion. And I love how you've combined your expertise as a science writer with sort of your interest in like the macabre and mystical and legend and all that. And then also wrapping in the travel aspect and just kind of like the exoticness of being able to kind of check out some off the beaten path places. And this is just a sampling from the book, right? Go to Hell, A Traveler's Guide to
Absolutely.
Earth's
There's
most
so many
otherworldly
more
destinations. Yeah. So if you want to go deeper, check out the book. Yeah. Cause when I got the email, when we were talking about this interview, I was thinking about some of these places that you described, like, you know, fire in the ground, that sort of thing. But then there was like Hell, Michigan. There's like a town named Hell, Michigan, which I referred to a little bit earlier. So it wasn't just, you know, I imagine there's not a fiery pit there. Like, was that included
No, there's
in the
not.
book?
It's actually
or?
a very charming small town.
There you go. Yeah. It was just like,
Yeah,
why not
so
put this in the book? Because of
yeah.
I mean, it works, right?
I mean, it works. And you know, I tried to arrange the book according to places that I called portals to the underworld. Those are the places associated with legends and lore, and many of them were seen as literal portals to the underworld. And then I've got Hells on Earth, which is your, you know, hellscapes, places that have inspired our visions of hell. And I put Hell, Michigan into that because it kind of basically they've taken their name and run with it. They've turned it into a hell-themed destination.
They're
right?
leaning in to the.
They're
to
leaning
the
into making it a literal hell on earth. But it's a fun little small town. You can go there. You can be mayor of hell for a day. You can buy all of the hell-themed tchotchkes. The guy who essentially owns most of the, you know, like I said, it's a very small town, and so there's really a few places to go, and most of them are owned by one guy named John Cologne. And he's this great guy who loves a pun and has really developed the town around the hell theme. So they do festivals. Of course, Halloween time is big for them. It's a great time to go to visit hell. You can also go in the winter and get the famous hell frozen over effect. A lot of people, and of course I had to get my picture taken in front of the roadside to hell. And so you can, you know, go in the winter when there's icicles coming off of the
almost
sign
like
to
one
hell.
giant roadside attraction in a way.
It really is.
Except an actual
kind
functioning town. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and you can stop, you know, there's a saloon, there's a gift shop and ice cream and putt-putt. There's even a wedding chapel. So if you're so inclined, you can even get married in hell, which was great. When I went, I got to see a wedding in hell, and the bride and groom were, you know, dressed up. Everyone had on either angel halos or devil horns. And they really just they really played up the whole theme. So it was a lot of fun. It's very family friendly. You know, nothing too scary actually in that hell.
Right. They really ran with it. No, isn't it funny that, I don't know, maybe it's my imagination, but it seems like every town like that, there's like one person that owns almost every business in the town. Why?
Yeah.
It's just like one super entrepreneurial, like mom and pop, kind of like,
ice cream shop, mom and pop,
ice cream shop, owns the mini golf thing, owns that museum. It's like, what? It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and in his case, John has really made that town what it is. You know, apparently it had gotten a little seedy back in the day. It's still a popular place for motorcyclists to come through when doing tours, because this is near Ann Arbor, and it's kind of, it's pretty. There's lots of lakes in that area, and so motorcyclists come through. But anyway, apparently it had gotten a little bit of a reputation for hell raising back in the day. And now it's all been cleaned up and made much more family friendly.
Nice. Well, thanks for taking the time to put together this list. You know, I mentioned at the top, we're going to ask you about a couple of these science articles you've written before you go.
Sure.
Will our dogs and cats eat us when we die? If we have a pet in the house and we die, all of a sudden whatever, washing dishes, bam.
Right. Whatever it is. that article actually was inspired when a friend of mine who lives alone and is an animal lover asked me, "Is this true? Like, or is this an urban legend that they'll find someone dead in their house and their cat or their dog has consumed them?"
You're like, "Oh, this is dark. I love this. Let's get into it. The cute dog eats the human. All right." Yeah.
I was like, that's a really good question. I was like, is that a real thing? And so I started looking into the forensic science literature and what medical examiners have seen. And the short answer is, your dog might eat you if you die. It's not as uncommon as one might have thought, although nobody tracks it. So you can't really put any numbers on how often this happens. But there's certainly a number of reports in the forensic literature, and medical examiners have told me, yeah, sure, I see that. And usually cats get the bad rap for eating people. I don't know why. People just think cats are mean, I guess. But most of the forensic reports were actually dogs. And
cats are just aloof. So it's hard for them to, you feel like now there's some cat people offending, I'm sure.
I don't know. I'm a cat person. I have 2 cats. One of them, I think, would definitely eat me if I died.
Nobody's going to come out looking at their pets the same after this conversation.
Yeah, no. But, I was surprised. I thought that dog owners were going to hate me after I wrote this article. And I was surprised how many people wrote to me and said, you know what, if I died and my dog was trapped in my house, I would want them to eat me. I would want them to survive. And I thought, well, how generous of you. But most of the cases that, what was kind of disturbing was that it's not just happening because the animal's hungry. Often it's just stress. Basically, they're freaked out and they start biting, trying to wake you up or whatever, and then it moves on from there.
That makes it feel a little better that they're trying to wake you up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I ended up feeling very, very bad for the dogs, involved in this. Think how stressful that would be, that your person is, suddenly,
Yeah, I know. We were making a little light about it, but you're right. I mean, yes,
I know, but poor doggies,
yeah,
they're just trying.
For sure.
They love you. They just love you too much.
Okay, you had another one. I'm curious about this one, and I did read the dog one because and we can link up to your website, by the way, where people can find the links to the book and everything too. But I didn't read some of these because I just wanted you to give me the answer, and the one that caught my eyes is the 5-second rule true? The 5-second rule, meaning I think it's, when you drop food on the ground or something and you're like, 5-second rule, like I can still eat that, which, I say I always apply the 5-second rule unless I'm in like the bathroom or something. Then it's like, there's no, it's a no second rule, Yeah.
Yeah.
But science has an answer.
Science has an answer. People have done the tests. Extensive research reveals no 5-second rule. It's contaminated the instant it touches something. So yeah, sorry, you're gross when you you're just gross when you pick something up off the floor and eat it. But you know what? Most of the time, unless you've been like flinging raw chicken juice around your kitchen or something like that, most of the time, you're probably not gonna pick up anything too bad, but yeah, I would watch out in the kitchen or the bathroom.
Thank you. Such sage advice, words of wisdom. And no, I appreciate you just coming on and having some fun with this, putting together the list. Congrats on the book. I mean, that's a tough thing to do, write a book.
It is, yeah.
Go through the whole process.
I'm working on my 3rd book now for National Geographic.
Wow.
This one is tentatively titled Superpowered, and it's going to be back to my science roots. It's going to be about the science of real-world superpowers. So amazing abilities that people have, where they come from, and whether we can get them.
Okay, so you got to come back on the podcast for that one. All right?
It's fun. It's fun. And I'm hoping to travel around and meet some very interesting people in the course of that as well.
Okay. My only superpower is like eating chocolate before noon. Does that count?
Yeah. Are you really excellent at
it? Please come back on for that one when you get to that stage where you're going to be reaching out, because I'd love to hear a bit more about those adventures, and especially the travel aspect, traveling around and meeting these people. That sounds like an incredibly fascinating project to be involved with. So wishing you the best of luck with this book and with the next one, and look forward to doing this again at some point.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for your time. Take care. There you have it. Want to thank Erika for stopping by the show. Again, the book, Go to Hell, A Traveler's Guide to Earth's Most Otherworldly Destinations, published by National Geographic. Was excited to have her on. She gave us a great tour, and I do have to apologize. I'm sorry that you had to find out that your pet might eat you if you die. I'm really sorry about that. But I am going to wrap this up with a quote that might make you feel better. Try to redeem myself a little bit here. One last reminder, don't forget to sign up over at zerototravel.com/newsletter. Let me know what kind of content you want. Do you dig these destination sort of global tour type lists that we have sometimes on the show? Is there a certain guest you would like me to have, a topic you want me to cover? That's how I can find out, by you communicating with me. So please get in touch and let me know if there's anything I can do. This is a community-powered show after all, and I'd love your feedback. Okay, here is a quote from Andy Rooney, funny guy, who said, "The average dog is a nicer person than the average person." Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed the Halloween spooktacular. Have a wonderful day. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by zerototravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.